call Vibhaktis, technically, are with the word itself, white space or black, actually matters. The algorithms assume this in Indian languages and many other languages of the world. People are now realizing it, that it's a very European model. English, maybe German, French, Spanish, Italian, that's it. And after that, there is a huge chasm, huge gap. So the cultural context is lost. The Indian sources are underrepresented. Indian knowledge system is a term that all of you are probably familiar with now. It is almost absent. And what we have are not the original Sanskrit sources or the Hindi authors, this, etc. We have the English translations mostly. That is what is being there. The Indian languages do not work because these linguistic nuances are lost. The dialects, we are a country, we are rich with dialects. If you talk about what Hindi is, Hindi has so many dialects. And when you write it down, you only write down one canonical version of Hindi. This is true for Bangla and many other languages, right? So the dialects are going to be lost more and more you use GenAI unless we use it with responsibility. Okay, and then there are of course these untranslatables, and we keep talking about untranslatables, but I mean we all know the very quintessential example is dharma. When you say the word dharma, any Indian whose mother tongue is an Indian language will understand it. But when you try to write it in English, we have to use the word religion. Now, religion and dharma are not the same. I'm not going to go into the philosophical detail of this, but we all understand that it's not the same. Therefore, if you keep using religion, this is an untranslatable. This is called untranslatable, right? You cannot use it. You have to use dharma as in the word dharma. Okay, please. So, it's one thing to always point out errors and say, oh, the world is not running, this is not running, you are not well, etc. So some of us actually was discussing this, and then we thought that we should do something about it. We are in India, we are academicians, we should do something about it. And that is where we have about 7-8 people, we decided to form a team. These are from different institutes, as you can see, IIT Bombay, IIT Kanpur, and different institutes. So we decided to form a team. We decided to approach DST to say that, look, we want to really work on it. We are very serious about working on it. You please provide us some funding. I mean, the funding is needed because you need to buy these GPUs, right? Not everybody can be like Professor Datta who pays from his pocket to buy a GPU. So we need it, and it is not about one GPU. This we are talking at the scale, a very large scale. And DST secretary, I should mention the name of Professor Abhay Karandikar here. He was very receptive. He understood the vision. He saw what the effect it can have on the country, and he supported us. He supported us, so we started off by this Bharat Gen. We called this team Bharat Gen. The name is obvious, Bharat, India, and Gen for GenAI. And then we are also now part of the India AI mission. So we are now working for about a year, I mean about 2 years or not, we have different things, and I'll go forward to this, what we are doing. So there is one, or rather there are two important goals for BharatGen. One is of course to have these models for India that understands India's context, India's languages, etc. But the second goal, at least in my mind, is much more important. At the end of Gen is an academic consortium of maybe 10 or maybe 15 people. That's not India. So we have to create a Gen AI ecosystem in the country where every student who works in India, every student who works in Gen AI will feel like I should be working for India. Will feel like, okay, there is a possibility, there is an opportunity to work for India, to work on Indian languages, to work on Indian data, and we will get them different hackathons, we will get them different GPUs, different support, etc. So the ecosystem must be built, and not just academia, government should be part of it, industry should be part of it, startup should be part of it, right? So our bigger aim or a bigger vision is something like a Gen AI ecosystem. And you see, if I take this very large example, ISRO started. ISRO started very small, with a handful of people, with a handful of government support. And now, any child in India who wants to work in space has an aspiration that I should work for ISRO, and I should do something that no other country has done. We should be having a vision, we should be having a dream for that. So, of course, and therefore we need fundamental innovation. We just cannot be following the West. The West does this. They have bought 100 GPUs and have done this for English. Let us buy 100 GPUs and do this for Hindi. That is one model, but that will not let us go far. We have to innovate. We have to fundamentally innovate. And therefore we require foundational models, etc. And again, one thing that my previous speaker, Professor Datta, mentioned is that the cost for doing all these GenAI models is huge. The cost is not in terms of just the money, but the cost in terms of the environment. The huge amount of carbon footprint that it does is, I mean, it's actually, if you think of it, if you read the numbers, you will feel alarmed, and we should be feeling alarmed. So therefore, always building a large and a very large model cannot be the way forward, especially not in a country like India, where to us environment is our mother, nature is our mother, right? So we should be very mindful of the environment. We should actually strive to build smaller models but more efficient models, right? Okay, so please. So Bharat domains, we work on different things. We have the foundational models, we have the Param series of models, releasing multiple models. We are in the way of releasing, we have released 9 billion models, 7 billion, we are in the way of releasing 17 billion and higher models. And for different domains, specific domains. So for agriculture, we have an Agri-Param model. For Ayurveda, we have an Ayur-Param model. For legal, we have a Legal-Param model. For finance, we have a Finance-Param model. Maybe. For visions, we have this Patram model, they have a speech model, we have an OCR model, etc. See, these are all models that are coming out from the Bharat ecosystem. And these are fundamental models, foundational models that we have put. And we also have benchmarks. Now, one again important thing is that this issue of benchmarks. So for example, I'll take the example of this translation. And how do machines say that a translation is good? Say you translate from English to Hindi. How does a model say that it is good? There is some score called Blue and Rouge and all of this, but the fundamental thing there is that it looks at pairs of words and sees how many pairs or how many triplets of words match with the gold, what the very good translation is now, right? So this has a very fundamental assumption, which is that the rigid word order. So English, for example, is very rigid word order. So if I say I eat rice, you cannot change it. You cannot say eat rice I. That makes no sense. But in Hindi, in Indian languages, the word order is not rigid. So you can say मैं चावल खाता हूँ. You can also say चावल मैं खाता हूँ. It makes sense to us. It's grammatically correct, right? So if the correct translation is मैं चावल खाता हूँ and your model gives you चावल मैं खाता हूँ, you say no, you are wrong. The problem is not in the translation model. The problem is in the metric. The way you are measuring this, that is the problem, because the way of measurement is for the English and other Western languages. So we need good metrics, we need good benchmarks, and therefore we have a whole effort on having different benchmarks from Bhasha. We have Bhasha bench Krishi, Bhasha bench Ayur, Bhasha bench Finance, Bhasha bench Legal, and so on and so forth. Right? Yes, please. And finally, I will talk about maybe a couple of projects that are very, very important. The unity of Indian languages. And I'm saying this in a very responsible manner. The Indian languages are closer to each other than what is being currently thought or projected. Correct? And I'm not just saying this to show that we actually did a full computational study, a full linguistic study on 6 languages, and we looked at the structure of the languages. We looked at how a word is created in a language, what is the meaning of a word, etc. Again, one very simple example that I'll tell you is that English again is I eat rice. So there is a subject, then there is a verb, then there is an object, right? But in most Indian languages, the basic translation is मैं चावल खाता हूँ. So subject, then object, then verb. So the verb comes in the end in Indian languages, right? And this is not just for Hindi. This is for Tamil, this is for Bangla, this is for Marathi, this is for most Indian languages, most major Indian languages. So the structure, if you take at it, it's very similar to each other. Then the way a word is formed, and I already told about this, we have this prakriti plus pratyay. We take the root and we add some pratyay to this, or we take a noun root and we add some vibhakti, form the word. Ramasya, Ramena in Sanskrit, right? Ramka, Ramse. This is not the same as in English. So Indian languages are much closer to each other, and the vocabulary, of course, even for any major Indian language, you say 70 to 80% of the words, the nouns, you can just use it and people will understand. That's the unity in vocabulary. So we have a book that came out, and the version 1 has came out, and we are working in version 2 to do some more study on this. Maybe we can go forward. And just to see, and then there is another important thing called word grouping. So what has happened in Hindi mostly, and to some extent other languages, but what has happened in Hindi is this very unfortunate business of introducing blanks. So when you say, Ram ne Ravan ko mara, on the surface it looks like 5 words, right? Ram ne Ravan ko mara. But actually how many words are there, if I ask you? 3. Because Ram ne is actually one concept. And Ravan ko is actually one concept. And Mara is one concept. So, and if you translate to Sanskrit, which is almost perfect in this manner, is Ramaha Ravanam Hanti. Very clean 3 words. And many other languages. So what is the problem? There is no problem. It's just that when you are writing it, you are putting a blank between Ram and Ne. If you do word grouping, and you say, this is one word, or a compound word, or a multiple word, whatever you want to call it. If you process this as one token or one word, then translating to other languages and understanding for a person whose mother tongue is not Hindi becomes much easier and much similar to each other. And here is an example. So the leftmost is Sanskrit, the middle one is Hindi, and the right is Kannada. So if you see the sentence, Kolkata sthitam prasiddham Kali Matu Mandiram Ativa Bhavyam Asti. So this is the Sanskrit sentence. Kolkata sthita prasiddha Kali ka mandir bahut hi bhavya hai. This is talking about the Kalighat temple in Kolkata. And the same thing for Kannada. If you do this, you see this Kolkata underscore sthita in the middle graph, the bottommost thing. So Kolkata and sthita in Hindi it will be written with a blank in. But if you take out that blank or if you club them together and if you keep on doing this Kali, Ma, Ka and Bahut Hi, then the structure becomes exactly the same as in Sanskrit and in Kannada. Exactly the same. This Kali Mata, then Kolkata, Delhi, Iruva, then and this becomes, of course, this is an example where it becomes exactly the same. For most real sentences, this will become very similar, if not exactly the same. So this is something that we want, that our language models, our GenAI models should be understanding this, should be using this. Right? Yes, please. And the final one that I will talk about maybe is that we all use this Grammarly, right, for English. We are a country of how many billion pop, and there are how many speakers of Hindi? Hindi is the 3rd most spoken language in the world. Bangla is the 5th. But why are there no grammar error correction tools for these Indian languages? Because the problem with India, and this is very much relevant now that we are talking about, the language I am talking to you is not an Indian language. Because that is what has become the de facto. So people who work on this, people who are educated, are so comfortable with English that we do not look at our own languages. So there are 2 ways to break this. Either you become uncomfortable or you raise your intention to do it. It's hard to become uncomfortable at this age. So I thought let's work with this grammar error correction. So our aim is to work for Indian languages, and then what we did is that this is not just a study in air. So we actually asked different people whose mother tongue is that language to write them essays in an exam kind of setting. You sit down and you write an essay. That gives us a sense of how errors, how many times you do an error and what kind of an error, more important. Whether it's a spelling error, whether it's a karta karma error, whether it's a linga error. And you all know this famous joke about Bengalis speaking Hindi, right? Because Bengalis do not have this sense of a gender in the noun, the ending, correct? So when we speak Hindi, we Ram karti hai ya Ram karta hai, this is still very confusing to us. Because हमारे लिए तो Ram kurche. So everything is the same thing. Ram kurche, Sita kurche. But यहाँ पे Ram करता है, Sita करती है. This is very confusing for us, right? Well, for Hindi people, there may be other kind of errors. For Bangla, there are different kind of errors. So what we did is for every language, when I say every language, for many languages, many major languages, we collected essays. We understood what is the distribution of common errors. Then we simulated that errors, saying now, can you train a language model with this kind of errors? Can you simulate a lot of such errors? Then can you learn a language model, and then can you learn these transformer models, whatever GNI models, etc., which will, given a sentence, it will detect first whether there is a grammatical error there. If yes, it will understand where the grammar error is and what kind of error is, and then it will also suggest corrections. That's all. So we have done it for Bangla. We are in the process of doing for Hindi, followed by other major languages. And if you just go to the next slide. Sure, please. Yes. Yes.
बगल में ही है. तो जैसे ग्रामरली जैसा है तो हिंदी में बहुत सारे करेक्शंस की जरूरत रहती है. So can you launch a prototype for all of us at State University? हम लोग भी मदद करेंगे. So that the plagiarism, and while they are writing thesis, जब वो thesis लिख रहे हैं तो एक मदद भी होगी, and we will able to generate lot of data also.
Yes.
Real time.
Thank you.
27 universities हैं, everybody is doing PhD. 80% PhD work is in Hindi. तो वो एक अच्छा काम हो सकता है हम लोगों से. So what I understood from this also.
Thank you very much for this suggestion. This is exactly what we want to launch, the Hindi Grammarly kind of thing, at least the initial version where we can do this.
So you can start with CSJMU. So we are just fine. So we will give you all the data. And then all the state universities.
Correct.
Because we are in deficit of getting these things and helping the real students.
Yes.
Because बाकी में the plagiarism वो सब check कर लेता है Grammarly and all those things. But no support for these people.
Correct.
जो हिंदी लिखते हैं.
Correct. Absolutely. No, that's right. So we have launched it for Bangla. We are, if you ask me why I have launched it for Bangla, again, by this time it should be obvious.
No, you are biased.
This is my mother tongue. I understand it the best, so that I have more comfort in there. I can actually see what's happening. And then, as I said, venturing into Hindi, so I may be worse than an LLM.
So I will say there are international biases, there are national biases.
So these are the different kind of errors. But touching upon this point, I have a proposal, and this is an important proposal, and I keep giving to all institutes that I go, is that we talk about we don't have enough data, we don't have enough technical data, and when you talk about a jargon, see, for example, we are having this entire thing about generative artificial intelligence. If I ask you, what is the Hindi word for this? It takes you a little bit of time to think of it because it's not natural. Why it is not natural? Because we don't use it enough. So now, at least the abstract of every thesis that is published from any university, can it be in that mother tongue?
Yes.
So that will create over the years a lot of this technical jargon that we are using. Right? With that, I will end. Thank you. So I thank all my collaborators, students, and all the colleagues, and thank you again for listening to me.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Good morning, good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for this insightful session. So and we as an organization indulge in a lot of training for young students. And Gen AI seems to be our first stop when we introduce young minds to artificial intelligence. And images become very exciting. And when we try to, on most occasions, all of our GPTs give us incorrect maps of India.
Yes.
Either Akshay Chin is not there, or POK is not there, or both are missing. Now, when you talk about sovereign systems, what are the best practices that you and the cohort that you're working with are taking to ensure that these kind of errors don't creep in? That's the first. And second, is there a time for an LLM diplomacy where we engage with other countries, or where these products are originating, and tell them that, what, this is not working, this is an incorrect map of my country, that will eventually get normalized, because every day people are just seeing that map, and it may just become the order of the day that POK and Akshay Chin are not a part of
Yeah,
India.
exactly. Thank you very much. Yeah, maybe a follow-up question.
I believe we were talking about the grammar portion that was untouched. And the Vyakaran part, like last day we
Sanskrit
have
Vyakaran.
studied something about Panini.
Oh, Sanskrit
So
Vyakaran, yeah.
Maheshwari Sutra can be
Maheshwari Sutra.
done towards the parsing and unambiguous grammar.
Yes. That can be done. Okay, that can be done. I mean, I understand the question. It's about how Sanskrit grammar.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The
But first,
Vyakaran part that
right. But first, going back to the original question of how do we ensure that our sovereign LLMs always include POK and Akshay Chin as part of India. That is something we must ensure. There is some techniques called fine tuning and instruction fine tuning and etc. Where, see, think of LLM like a child, correct? While training, once it becomes an adult, you cannot do anything to it. While training, treat it like a child. How do you make a child learn something? If it does correctly, you reward it. If it does not, you punish it. So the same thing you have to employ for LLM. So, and you punish it heavily. So if it says something is wrong, if instead of marking Delhi here, it marks it 100 kilometers down, yes, that's an error. That's a bad error, but it's not that grave an error as giving POK back to Pakistan. Right? So the errors should be calibrated. The error laws that you are saying, you should hand code certain things, not everything, just give it to data. Give it to data for most of the things, but certain things you have to be very careful. And the sub point that you said, LLM diplomacy, I like the term, because you see China clearly says, you use the DeepSeek models, why has government banned it? It clearly says Arunachal is part of China, etc., etc. They are unabashed about it. And it's time for India to also stake a claim in this Gen AI world. We should be also very forthright, very upright, and very bold in saying Akshay Chin is our part. There is no debate in it. There is no more discussion, right? We should do that. Okay, now coming back to the other question of Sanskrit grammar. Sanskrit grammar is very well formed, extremely well formed. LLMs, at the end of the day, I think Professor Datta, my previous speaker, kept saying there is three mathematics that is there. Forward pass, loss, and back propagation. So Sanskrit grammar is extremely rule-based. And it's the perfect grammar if you think of just Panini's grammar. So to employ an LLM for it may not be. So one thing that I always say, I work in AI, but one thing I always say, if you know something, or if there is a rule for it, please don't try to learn it. If you know that you are going to go back and hit a wall and it will hurt you, please don't try that at home. Saying, does it hurt me? Let me try. If you know a rule, please just implement it. Don't learn it. Machine learning, etc. Nothing is 100% correct in machine learning, right? So Panini's grammar, Ashtadhyayi and Maheshwari Sutra and all of these are very well formed. So we should be just having an effort to implement that for Sanskrit. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
I have a question. Your last comment regarding technical jargon.
Yeah.
When you work in the government sector, it is always mandatory to give a Hindi translation to Parliament or Vidhan Sabha.
Yes.
I come from a veterinary university. There is a disease in pig which is called classical swine fever, a name. So in a parliamentary, when you give a question translated it. It translated it as a Shastriya Suvar Jar. Okay. Now, why I am referring to you, we will be very excited, collaborate to veterinary sector, technical jargon. If we can work together, that would be one good thing we can do for the veterinary profession for the country. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is needed. So we should be having a good way of generating words on the fly, generating technical words on the fly. We are actually starting a project on that. Thank you all. Namaskar, Namasarvabhyo to all.
Thank you so much, sir, for your contribution of AI for Bharat. I'm sure this type of research will take our nation forward. Now I'm inviting. Now may I request Honorable Professor Vinay Kumar Pathak, Vice Chancellor Chhatrapati Sahuji Maharaj, Kanpur University, to kindly felicitate our expert, Professor Arnab Bhattacharya.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Professor Arnav has told us that he will launch a project, right?
Yes.
For the state university, for doing the grammars and for the Hindi. Thank you very much.
Setting the tone for the next session, please welcome entrepreneur, product thinker, AI transformative strategist, Mr. Akash Saxena, founder, Evaluate AI, on stage to share his perspective on AI use from education to employability. Please, Mr. Akash Saxena.
कनेक्टेड आगे हाँ वो तो एक्चुअली वो वही बट वो वो एक्सटेंडेड पे जाएंगे कैसे ये देखिए आप प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि ये डिस्प्ले सेटिंग्स पे है तो डायरेक्टली बट उसको अरेंज करने के लिए ये करना होगा हाँ एक बार नहीं नहीं उसमें कुछ कंट्रोल होना चाहिए Yeah, actually it's nothing there. That's the challenge. No, it's showing. But is the cursor going there? If the cursor is going there, we can address it.
Okay, stop mirroring.
Mirroring is stop.
नहीं
वहाँ का चला जाएगा ना डिस्प्ले सेटिंग हाँ that's the challenge. Display settings.
Why is it coming there?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Okay, just remove that. Now it's here. Let's close this. How many desktops do you have? This one you want?
Yeah, I want this one.
Let's go. Now you put it.
आ जाएगा भी. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Hi. Afternoon, everybody. Madam Governor, Professor Patel, Dr. Pandey, and all the esteemed Vice Chancellors. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be standing here in front of everybody who's probably shaping the future of education and AI in India, right? And today, I'm here to talk about something that's very close to all our hearts, right? Our students, and a parameter that's rarely measured correctly, which is employability. Not placements, not degrees, but readiness. See, before me, we've heard multiple sessions, all very enlightening, right? We've heard from IBM, they're revolutionizing how you teach these students, what are the teaching methodologies. We've heard what's technology in the back end that's working towards it. Now we'll talk about what is the for a student when they enter the professional or when they enter the industry, what is expected out of them and how can AI revolutionize that? And that's precisely what the topic of my talk is, right? Before we move forward, and by the way, my presentation is a little less technical because I really wanted to drive this message across. Of course, in the back end is all the technology that you've seen in the previous presentations. So, let's look at a familiar story, right? A student, let's say Aman, joins a BTech degree, a BTech course, right? The first year is full of fun, friendship, festivals, freedom, high dopamine levels, right? The second year probably is even better because the mess food probably gets palatable. So, third and fourth year, something dramatic happens. The placement notices bring in. The student gets a little nervous, reality hits him, probably he starts getting serious about his career, starts tweaking his resume, starts looking at crash courses, and probably is a little bit of panic about facing the interviews, probably facing potential failures, and so on and so forth, right? See, as I like to put it, students like to treat employability as a technical debt. Everybody knows it exists, but rarely anybody tries to address it early. So, with that said, it's not really their mistake. See, students don't lack effort. What they lack is an early feedback. By the time they understand that employability is critical, it's too late for a systematic improvement of the same, right? So the idea is to probably take it up early. Now, let me be very clear. Universities in India are doing a phenomenal job at setting the foundations right? Whether it be setting the conceptual depth, structural thinking, or the intellectual rigor, they're doing an amazing job at that, right? NEP 2020 rightly emphasizes functional thinking, multidisciplinary, and object-oriented education. A very, very novel vision, right? Education is the cognitive infrastructure of a nation, and our universities are at the forefront of it. So where's the gap? Industries, on the other hand, evaluate something totally different. They don't just test the knowledge, but they test the latent competencies of an individual. How do you reason under uncertainty? How do you communicate? How do you structure your thoughts? How do you perceive things, right? What is your decision-making quality like? Now, if academies measure what student knows, industry measures how would a student perform for questions that whose answers are not present in the textbook. You see the stark difference there? And that's precisely, just building on top of that, academic evaluation is like a closed set classification. There is a structure, there is a curriculum, there are, marking strategies, there is a correct answer. Whereas industry is all about open world problems. There is ambiguity all around, there is lack of data, and then there are trade-offs. How do you take that decision? In exams, silence is golden. Whereas in an industry interview, silence is very dangerous. So, with that said, how do you output? Well, That's okay, that's okay. Okay, so with that said, how do you quantify employability? How do you translate it into, some measurable parameters, right? So for a while we've done this, we've worked on this quantification. We've classified employability into largely 4 major dimensions. Awareness, do you know your domain, right? Do you understand your domain? Application, can you apply the knowledge in your domain to solve real world problems? Adaptability, the world is changing at a very, very rapid scale these days, right? So can you adapt? Are you agile enough to adapt and change and still apply and affect the outcomes, right? Behavior, I cannot emphasize on this enough. Again, by behavior, I mean, can you take the information that is fed? Can you look at a real world problem, structure it, communicate it well enough to your peers and drive the outcome, right? So those are the 4 pillars or the 4, dimensions of employability, right? Now, for the optimistic part, today, in this age, is the best time to be a fresh graduate in the history of the world. Why is that so? Because AI has compressed the experience graph. It has leveled the playing field. And a fresh graduate with, let's say Gen AI, with understanding of Gen AI workflows can have the productivity of a professional. And I'm talking pure applicability. I'm currently not talking about the understanding of technicalities of AI, right? I'm just saying if you can apply Gen AI in your respective domain, whether you are in finance, whether you are an MBA grad who's working in marketing, whether you're an engineer, whether you are an HR professional, just about anything, if you can apply Gen AI, you would have the productivity of somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience. You look at the Gen AI graph here, and you look at a traditional learning graph here, right? The productivity graph. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not undermining experience. Experience is really, really critical for judgment, for ethics, and the context, understanding the context, right? But AI is a that the world has not had before, ever. All right, so on that note, probably let's come up with a new definition for employability. Apart from the parameters that I discussed, it is your domain skills raised to the power of AI augmentation, right? So along with the domain skills, now I would say you need to understand AI awareness, AI application, AI, and the agility. All the parameters that I mentioned are valid for AI too. And when I say AI, I mean Gen AI, applying it to your day-to-day job. And this is an alignment with the NEP 2020's emphasis on digital literature and future-ready skills. So, see, this is not a last semester thing. You cannot build employability, you cannot improve employability in the last semester. It's a very structured approach, especially in today's age where things are not changing on an annual level, on a quarterly level. It is changing every month. The world is changing,